Welcome back to Burn the Ship, the podcast we connect entrepreneurs to professionals to help you go all in on your business. I'm your host, Ezra Brown. Without further ado, I'm going to allow my guests to introduce themselves. We have two of them today.
Hi, I'm Vikki Boney and the owner of Sportoroo.com and been an entrepreneur for 25 years.
Awesome.
And looking forward to this podcast.
Me too.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm the daughter of the founder and the helper too. I am a senior at the University of Michigan and working with my mom to pursue our dreams to change youth sports.
That's awesome. I love what you guys are doing, especially coming from a sports background. I can appreciate it very much. Tell us a little bit about Sportoroo and kind of how this started.
So Sportoroo started as an emotional journey.
Okay.
When something had happened in youth sports with one of the local clubs, where a parent decided to punch another parent. And I thought, wow, this is kind of weird. Went to the director. They didn't want to do anything. Contacted AAU to say, hey, I've got this problem. And then they basically said that they don't monitor coaches.
Of course.
That they're really there for the insurance and the setting up of tournaments.
Okay.
So I said, all right, there's not a lot of information out there for parents to make a decision around what club they join, whether they want a coffee clutch or whether they want something that is super, super competitive. Mm-hmm. So I started on a website.
Awesome.
And started putting it together and started researching the clubs to get where we are today.
Absolutely. You want to add on to that?
Yeah, so I would say also Sportoroo is kind of like a Yelp for youth sports, especially with our backgrounds of moving to a ton of new locations due to my dad's job. We consistently had to start over with different clubs and competition levels. And so this platform's here to help parents who are moving or their kids pivoting into a new sports to find that team that fits their best style.
Awesome. And yeah, so elaborate a little bit more, as you said, like the coffee coach and then the more competitive coach. I come from the sports background, as I said, but I've seen it a ton. You have those kids that come from rec ball when they're 14 and they go into the travel space and they're like, why am I want to go play for that high level, but how do they, what do you mean by that coffee coach to show the difference in that?
Well, I think what we do is, first of all, we have as a rating, how competitive is this league? Okay. So parents can ultimately do that. But I mean, we came up through the high competitive #1 in the country, like no messing around.
Yeah.
And we're extremely competitive. My husband played at St. Bonaventure in college. I swam. So just that type A personality. But not every parent really wants to be all in and give up every weekend and spend that kind of money. But therefore, one of the things, and I'll let Jackie address this, is that some of the kids might just want to play in high school. Some of them just want to get some exercise. Sometimes the parents just need a break. And it doesn't have to be that uber superior competitiveness where you're sweating.
Right. That makes sense.
And things of that nature.
Yeah, so I think also our platform also helps clubs with their marketing to find that niche of the customers that they're looking for. Like my mom said, I did grow up in a very competitive environment in club sports, competing on top teams, and all my teammates, especially in the final years, are now playing Division I volleyball. But I think in my start, I did play on different levels of club, and with my high school teammates, some of them just wanted to play club so they could make the high school team next year, and they weren't looking for every weekend or playing on Easter or giving up spring break or being able to have their whole summer. And so I think with our platform, it helps the players being able to navigate and the parents be able to navigate that the competitiveness and the level of commitment and the cost of time and things like that. I think that's super important to be able to communicate that to parents prior to them signing the sheet, and then the club being able to find what their niche market is, and are their players the ones that are the ones that going to be Division I, or are they going to be the ones that just want to make the high school team?
Right. No, that's very much so is kind of how it is in baseball, kind of football, basketball, all of it. You don't really know what you don't know, and that's kind of something that I want to kind of hop into the next topic is you guys were saying that you want to fill in is kind of bridge that gap to kind of show what a coach has, what that organization has, and what their background is. So, hey, this organization, this is kind of why people left. We had a conversation before we got on the podcast, but I'll let you guys elaborate on that. is like why we left here, why should I choose this program, or why should I choose this one? It's kind of what you guys are what your mission is, but how are you guys going to kind of make that vivid for somebody?
Well, first of all, what we do is we have a rating scale.
Okay.
And it's not just 1 to 5, so it's not just blank of 1 to 5. So it's got a number of different criterias that we're hoping parents who are currently or past parents who have been in these clubs will come in and do the rating, but you can also provide comments. So it has, how competitive is it? It has, what's the, how, is it good coaching? What about cost? Because a lot of times parents get into this and they're told $300, and then it's the coach wants $200 for his travel, and then it's another $1,000 for travel, and it's another $1,000 for this. So being able to address the cost and what you should expect all in versus writing that check. But there are also some of these programs that cost $10,000 to get into. So how do you know what you're getting into before you sign that check? Because once you're in, if you don't like it after a month, you're in.
You're $10,000
because
out the
they
window.
own you. Because they own you through your AAU number. They own you through your USAV number. Whatever program you are, if you don't like it and you want to quit, there's generally penalties. And you are also in a bad situation that you can't go to another club. And especially in the recruiting years, you certainly don't want that to happen.
Absolutely. And then is there something that you guys are going to do kind of to ease that recruiting side for somebody? For somebody like me coming out of school, I had no background of anybody around me that was going to play in college or knew people that were in college to give me the advice to go there. Is that something that you guys are going to have part of Sportoroo?
So there's 2 things that we're going to look into. So blog posts with top questions to ask on your first call, or here's a template that would be a good email to reach out to colleges with. So that's free content that we would be able to provide to college kids that are just searching the web. And with our network, we can survey a ton of college kids of questions that they've used, because I play college athletics and have a ton of friends and family friends that have been playing. So we can use successful questions that they use. And then another thing is like a CRM platform where we can help manage emails that students or high school students could use to ensure that they're emailing the correct information to coaches and ensuring that it's the right frequency of communication. So an example would be you have a tournament coming up, but you don't want to go through all the emails and send it individually. Creating a platform would be like create an email template to send to coaches, but change it for each coach for their name and make it personal for that school. So you're saving a ton of time, but also it makes it easier on a 16-year-old kid that's also balancing high school, social, playing college athletics, and just trying to grow up in high school. So I think that would also take away some time from the stress of emailing a ton of college coaches.
Absolutely. You want to add anything to it?
Yeah, I think it's a funny story comes to mind. When Jackie was doing some of her emails, and you're trying to use that kind of boilerplate email.
Right.
And you send the wrong email name to the wrong coach or wrong information.
When you're like the 50th in.
Right.
And you're like, oh, smokes, what am I going to do?
Right.
And she basically, handled it very, very well and said to the coach, it was Penn State, that she would go out and do some burpees and have some accountability.
Right.
And he said that is the funniest response he'd ever received. But I think, what we want to do is make it similar to a recruiting platform where parents can see the coaches, see a bio, learn a little bit more about the program before they're picking and choosing. Because once you're in, again, yes, you can transfer or whatever, but it's a lot of work to do all of that.
Absolutely, and spending 10 to 20 grand a year on sports is not parents don't want to do that. They do it just because they love us. You guys do it because you love us. But I can tell you, my parents were not in no position to do that for me growing up, and they did. They made it happen every weekend on the road my entire life. So and we're on teams where I should have never been there because of that. Whoever was running that spot, I shouldn't have been there. But we didn't know what we didn't know until we got there. You got to go experience it. We're people, so if we don't have a source like this to look at, then we just go do it. We're people that learn by trial and error. We're human.
Well, what I find really interesting about the youth sports world is that people will put a ton of research into public schools and things of that nature, and see what the school's ratings are, and they get all this information to pick their house or the school or whatnot. But we spend less in public schools than most parents pay in youth sports with no information. So you kind of hop, and it's all word of mouth. We've been doing some marketing research, and that's how parents find out is word of mouth on trainers or on clubs. And what we want to do is make it just a little bit easier. And we've also created a community where parents can go in and ask a question and get additional information from parents. So that is set up within the site. So we're hoping people will start using it, whether it's what baseball bat should you be using, what cleats should I be getting,
Right.
What trainer could I use, or I'm going to go to Fort Lauderdale and I have to feed 30 people. What restaurants are available?
See, yeah, that's a tool that's definitely could be used. Going to be very valuable in the space for sure. And what would you say has been the hardest thing of getting this thing kind of rolling?
Well, I think first, making sure the website works, so people have a great experience. I think next is just getting it out there in front of people, so that they know that they can do it with confidentiality.
Okay.
Your name, you don't have a username.
Is it all anonymous?
It's
Sorry
all
to mean to interrupt you,
No,
but yeah,
it's all anonymous. So it's like whether you're a parent, club director, whether you're an event.
It says, though, if it's like from a parent, so it's like from that perspective, or like from a player in the review, or like club director, like it has that specificity. I don't know how to say the word. Specificity. That, so you can know like the perspective it's coming from, but it doesn't say names. Which I think is extremely
awesome.
important.
Very, very, because you could be your best player, because usually your best player is the one that's got the most complaints too, a lot of times.
Most time. And also, then you don't have the fear, because as an athlete, like you always have that fear. Your coaches, you think of them as so superior, as so much authority, and you don't want to disappoint them or get on their bad side, because they can dictate so much of your future with playing time or conditioning or I don't know. I remember the fear I had when I was like, oh shoot, I should have probably not said that or something like that. And so not having that fear of being able to like actually post your opinions and actually voice your concerns, or even your, like, we're only talking in negatives. Someone could also have just an amazing experience. Yeah. And I've had my fair share of amazing experiences, finding my best friends, amazing memories and things like that. So this platform too is also to voice the positives of club sports and being in sports and the discipline that you learn as a young child, or your accountability that you learn, and saying that my kid has changed completely after now he like folds her clothes, I don't know, something like that, or has time management and things like that. There's so many valuable skills that you learn as an athlete, and especially as someone coming out of college, most people hiring are saying that as an athlete you have valuable skills that it's hard to teach, and so that's also a platform that like A5 or a club was able to teach my kid valuable things.
Absolutely, I love that. And I want to circle back to what you said about like positively is how it can impact like a trainer. Like you were saying, like we don't know what the best trainers are. You just find them through word of mouth or the grapevine of like, hey, I had 3 kids. Like you say, you had 2 older than her that had already used them before, so you knew that person was there. But you were like me, y'all were just going around and finding the right one, and finally the shoe finally fit to where you've realized that was something good. But I see so much value in that for people and sole trainers, to where they hop on there, they're going to get praised, and most trainers work for like an A5 organization or an East Cobb, but they're there inside of that realm coaching, but they're just looking to get that platform to where they can build their own book, to where they can have kids and come to do, because they're doing what they love. They want to do that, and they're obviously good at it, but there's no platform for them to do it. Like they can get on social media and do it, but it's social media. Are those people going to be in your area? They may be in that demographic that you're looking for, but are they going to be able to come boots on the ground to you, or are they going to be on the other side of the country? And I think that that's very valuable because they'll know, like, hey, this guy's in my area or this girl's in my area. They can train my child. I think that's awesome. And then
save a little money.
Absolutely, because you don't know, because you're going to go, like you said, outside is $75 to $100 an hour that you guys paid for our lessons growing up, and that was, that's a significant amount of money to some people, and some people it's not, but it's definitely where it gets expensive. You're doing those things 2 times a week at least,
Well, and you want to make sure that you're getting a benefit and it's a fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It really comes down to fit for the family, fit for the trainer,
Right.
fit for the player,
Right.
so that they're getting the most that they can out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I just think that it's a very convoluted area for parents, whether it's finding a camp for summer just to fill the time or a camp that they're going to get a skill,
Right.
and really focusing on getting into the right club. But we want to talk about, everyone, is like, I want to be a D1 athlete. Well, maybe it's okay to be a D3 athlete,
Right.
because some of the most amazing academic institutions are out there are looking for those athletes. But it's no different in club, because you've got team 1 to team 72, and I'm being facetious.
Right.
But maybe it's better to play than not to play on the one team. So, what's that number 2 coach like? What can I get out of it? What are the benefits? So that if you join, that you're getting the most out of the experience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And with that, like, I've seen players being frustrated being put on the 2s, but they end up going to a better school than some of my teammates that I had on the 1s team, because they were able to actually get significant playing time. And I think some people, especially club sports, like, get so wrapped up in the message that's being conveyed within that club of, no, you're not gonna, if you don't do this, you're not playing D1. Like, that's not true. Like, there's so many different paths to making it to Division 1, and you see it all the time. And I just watched the Aaron Rodgers, like, documentary on Netflix, and he was in a JUCO, and now look at him, like, a very successful quarterback within the NFL. And I think it's important to also have a platform to communicate. Like, there's not a linear path in club sports or in sports at all.
No.
And I think it's honestly more important to have a path that goes all over the place, because you're learning what fits best and things like that. But the goal of our platform is to help make sure you understand that it's not going to be a linear path. I've never really heard of a story that's been completely linear.
No.
And help manage those emotions with that and those experiences, and be like, it's going to be okay. Like, this happened to my kid, and making it relatable, and not just being like spiraling down because someone told you that you're not going to do something.
Right. Some he say, she say.
Yeah, it's all
stuff like
word
that.
of mouth, and I think it's kind of really unfortunate that it's word of mouth of people who are trying to take your money, instead of people who have gone through it, experienced it. And I want to shout out my mom. Like, she's done so much research to allow us to be here, like my siblings and I, to be where we are. But with that, like, there were so many parents that are clueless within the space because they've never played sports or don't have the time to research. And so I think if they have a place where they can relate to and find sources that's quick and easy, I think that will also just help so many parents, like, manage their emotions within club sports and maybe take away, like, the stress that revolves around it.
Like that anxiety level. Like you said, like team 1 to team 72.
Yeah.
And you're completely right, though. Like, I watched it happen to teammates growing through life. Like, you go from team 1 to team 2, but they wind up at a better place than the bottom 10 kids on team 1 because they got experience and they got to go play. And versus those 10 kids that were on that team, it's because their parents were like, hey, you got to stay here because this is what they thought, because they had no idea.
Yeah,
no knowledge of anything like that. And that's why I think this is so valuable, what you guys are doing.
Well, and I want to take on to something else that you talked about, is the stress, is that, parents are known to be batshit crazy.
Absolutely.
And was I batshit crazy? Absolutely.
Both of mine were. I can tell you that right now.
My God.
My mom was climbing on top of the fence.
I was, nervous, an anxiety wreck. Oh my God, are they going to get recruited? What's going to happen at this tryout? Are they going to make the team? What am I going to deal with? And that's the other thing about Sportoroo, is that giving parents a place to vent, to ask questions, to know what to expect.
Right.
Because parents walk into some of this stuff with no idea what's happening.
Right.
That in the club that we were part of, is that when tryouts were happening, this is how it happens. They're going to start with the ones, so watch. They're going down the line and they're picking. And if your kid's not number 12, you're not a 1. Then they move on to the 2s.
I remember our first tryouts too. We're like, what's going on? Like, we were like, I have no idea. Why am I getting pulled aside?
But we don't know when we're kids, though. We'd have no idea.
Yeah.
We just find out
crazy.
as you get older, you start seeing it.
Yeah.
And like you said, though, and it is the parent, you're nervous and all those things, but you don't know, because typically as a parent, you get that word of mouth. And this is my experience of hearing how my parents on my teams talk now, is the other parent is telling them how to feel or what emotion they should feel about somebody
because of their experience.
Like,
it's all based
their
on
kid could have been the worst one on the team. Like, of course you're gonna have a bad experience. Your kid wasn't any good. But if your kid's the best and you're having a bad experience, that says something. Or your kid's on the middle of the road and they're still playing and they're performing and they're having a terrible experience, that says a lot. But if it's that, it's, you got to know who you're talking to with a grain of salt. So that's why that's valuable. I see a lot of value in this. I love it.
Also, I think another thing, like with that, the people who aren't playing and also having a great experience, like that speaks, I think, more volumes than anything. If the person that's not playing and they're still enjoying their time and their teammates in their club, and they're frustrated about not playing, like, obviously, but they're walking away and being like, you know what, I got better today in practice. Like, my coach helped me with this, like, or my coach is giving me hope that if I fix these 4 things, like, I have a chance of playing. Like, I think that speaks volumes too. And like, knowing that that's an experience that, like, my kid can have if they do what they're supposed to do. And I think that's really important. And also, speaking of people not knowing, I was just talking to a family friend of ours, and their daughter showed up to tryouts without any knee pads on, which, again, neither their mom played basketball, the dad played football. And I think that also is like, if she had Sportoroo, she could have Googled, maybe my kid should be in knee pads for volleyball tryouts. That's a good thing, you know?
Yeah, especially if you're showing up to a top-level place.
Yes, and so when she got there, she got pulled aside by one of the best moms at the club, and she was like, you need to get your kid in knee pads, like, right now. And so, like, bought them at the store and stuff. Everything was fine, but, like, they could have avoided that, like, 10-minute stress of, like, oh, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?
Right.
Oh, well, this is what you're supposed to wear to club tryouts.
Absolutely. And then that was the same thing. Like, we would do indoor practice. I was always a kid that wore pants when I was younger because I didn't know any better. Like, you wear gym shorts in there, or and you have coaches group text where you can text in there, but then again, you text in the group chat and then you're frowned upon because you're like, why are you asking to wear shorts, or why are you asking to do this and that?
And that was the worst fear ever as a kid. You're like, I don't want to text.
I don't want to be the one.
I should know.
Yep, because I'm going to be the one getting cooked all day at practice or all day at the game, and I'm not trying to hear it. Yes. But no, let's get to something else. Is kind of be on the downside of what you guys do. Is what's been really hard for you guys, as getting into Sportoroo right now? Because I know you've been with it for 10 years, but what's been the hardest part of this?
Well, in 10 years, I went solid because, obviously I work full time and I was getting kids through, recruiting and all of that. And I think the hardest thing is, how do you social market at 56 years old, which is not my gig. Right. So we're, just now getting to that. We've got 80,000 emails that we're going to be working on. Awesome. Surprised ourselves that we had 35,000 people actually sign up for the website without any marketing. So, we've kind of surprised ourselves. The technical part of it, is hard, making sure that this thing works. Right. And that parents have a great experience, but really how to educate them on what the need is, how they can personally be part of the platform. Right. This isn't our platform. This is everyone's platform. And this is really for parents to help each other so that they can meet the expectations, they can be in something that's going to work for them, and make it a positive experience for their kids, because most kids, by the time they turn 13, have quit the sport. Oh, yeah. Have quit sports entirely because of a bad experience. And that bad experience is not just always with coaches. It could be a bad experience with their parent. Or the teammates. Or whatnot. So what we want to do is create a great experience. But the hardest part is just doing things like this to continue to educate people that the platform is there. Get people to like the Facebook post, like the Instagram post, share with others, but most of all, start rating and putting comments in there so people can start to see what their experience is,
Right.
so that we can light a fire under this and really make this a special opportunity for people beyond the people who are retired from club sports.
Absolutely.
I'm retired, but I'm still committed to making it better.
Absolutely.
Working with AAU, working with the national programs. Maybe we do report cards. I don't know. But,
Elaborate on that. What do you mean by a report card?
So I think that the dream would be is that AAU would get a report card on all of their clubs so that they could do kind of like an employee survey, be able to look and say, wow, wait a second, this club has someone saying that someone was physically assaulted. Or maybe this club has, people took their money and they didn't get what they were supposed to get out of the program.
Or this club is doing great.
Yep, and this club is doing fantastic, so that they can recognize those clubs and then they can continue to reinforce good behavior versus maybe the not so great behavior. And here's the thing, it's the 80-20 rule.
Yep.
It is the 80-20 rule. 80% of the clubs are doing really well, but a lot of them are small and aren't getting recognized or out there in front of parents so that parents have them to try.
Absolutely, because they're not winning the big tournaments, and not all the kids aren't going to go, hey, I want to go over here to A5. I want to go check this out. It's like they're in the West Georgia volleyball program over there.
Right. And we're not saying A5's not good. It's just not right for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. That's everywhere though.
That's
like,
every club,
it could be
though.
you could be on the best team and it still not be the right fit though. That's just one of those things, but that provides value to where you can go look and research like, hey, this is what they do, how they operate. This is, this place is awesome, but this is how they operate. It's going to be Monday through Sunday. We're going, and we're going to go 2-3 hours a day. We're going to do this, this, and this. If it's not for you, don't come do it because you're going to hate your life.
And if you're not doing camps, and if you're not doing VPs, and if you're not doing the extra, it will affect you and how you're viewed at certain clubs. Now, some clubs it doesn't matter, but it's finding out. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
What's behind the screen,
Right.
and how do you manage once you get there?
Yeah, and then you said something about like the camps and everything being on the website. So that's a big thing because you don't find that stuff. It's usually like word of mouth, like as you as a parent, like, hey, Jackie's got a camp coming up. You guys want to attend, or she's going to this camp and that. Where'd you find that? Because then people would be like, where did you find that camp, or how did you get that? Because not everybody gets the letters mailed into you. Not everybody's getting that. But if you play in tournaments, they're mailing everybody that same letter.
Yeah.
But it's how do you find those and how do you know they have value, as a parent? And that is what you guys are kind of coming in and kind of bridging that gap.
Right.
to
Because it
show.
could be college camps if you're doing recruiting. It could be high school camps. It could be club camps. So when it comes to the camps, we're hoping to capture everything. The church camp, this camp, that camp, so that parents can say, my kid wants to play basketball. Here are the 4 camps that are within 5 miles of my house, because everything is done by a map grid.
Okay.
And here are the dates. These work for me. These don't work for me.
Right.
Or I can just put in my zip code and see all the sports I can, indoctrinate my kid to, which is what I did. I made them do everything. Whether they liked it or not.
Yeah.
But getting kids indoctrinated to other sports, whether it be a tennis camp or whether it's a golf camp, what is out there that kids can ultimately benefit from.
Absolutely, and that's what I was meaning is like the local camps you don't see. It's somebody's reposting about word of mouth or Facebook, and like if you don't follow those 10 people that are a part of that have posted it, you'll never see it. So that's huge. That's definitely something that is.
And that's what we're going to do. A lot of our social marketing is going to be through Facebook, through big groups like in Atlanta and things of that nature. We've joined some volleyball groups. We need to join some basketball groups, football groups, things of that nature, so that we can let people know that we're here and ask them to be a part of it.
Absolutely. What challenges do y'all see with getting into those, as going outside of the realm? Because I know you guys have a massive background in volleyball, but what do you see the challenges is in getting into the other realms of sports and in volleyball too?
I think one of our biggest challenges is first the network effect. Our platform's only valuable if we have people using it, and I think that's something that's going to be an extreme hurdle that we're going to have to figure out how to overcome, because we have to get past parents who've gone through it to rate and want to relive that experience and being willing to go back and rate their experience and things like that, and also not have that fear of not rating, and so making sure that they know that this isn't going to get back to the club. I think that will be it. And then also these new parents, making sure that they're using our platform and also rating and trusting our ratings and being a platform that they can consistently come back to, I think will be an extreme challenge. But like the network effect, I think is going to be like our biggest challenge with all sports of basketball, football, and things like that. And then also obviously our niche is volleyball, because all three of us kids, Boney kids, play volleyball. And like understanding the differences in the baseball world and football and basketball, because everything has their own little story, and each club has their own little story of how they work and how everything is managed. And I think making sure that we understand that everything's not like volleyball, that swimming's different and basketball is different, and how their club tournaments are set up and teams are set up. And we've already started to reach out to friends and family who play different sports and have gone through that and learning more about how their system works. So we're making sure that our platforms customized for that and not making it all just how volleyball works. So making sure that, this would work for their sport as well.
Okay. Makes sense. I mean, that just makes it operational and makes everything flow together, to where that is a question I had too, is are the organizations going to be a part of it? Or are you just going to have like, hey, this organization's listed here, you can comment on it, or you're going to try and tie the organizations into Sportoroo too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So what we've done is we've just set up on the website where they can actually create their own club. So if it's not there, they can create it, they can own it, ask us for help and assistance. So we, how do we market them?
Okay.
Is it a bold banner ad or whatnot?
Right.
What is it that it's going to take? But we want them to be part of it as well, because what we want to do is be able to monetize where they advertise their camps and their trainings and things of that nature. And then those are things that we can ultimately monetize on in the future. So our biggest goal right now is to start with a niche in the rating of the clubs and getting that information similar to like goodschools.org. And then continue to open up. But we have a bunch of camps that will be launching in the not too distant future, hopefully within the next month.
Awesome.
That people will begin to use. But we want people also emailing us if they know of camps that need to be out there, and allow us to be a partner. Let us be your administrative assistant to get that information up there.
I love it. And then the last thing I got for you guys is, do you guys know where Burn the Ship came from?
Not a clue.
We do not.
All right, Central American conquistador Hernan Cortez landed in modern-day Mexico. Thought he landed at Plymouth Rock, but he didn't. Made his men disassemble their ships and take off all their supplies. And he said, "This is our sign here. We're going to make it here and die trying." And we use the same sense in entrepreneurship and business. We're gonna fall down, but we're gonna keep getting back up until we make this work. And what's this been like? Obviously you're still in school, but you're starting to see it now. And Mom, you've been in it for a long time. What has this been like for you, for both of you?
Not giving up. I mean, we are going to make this work. Okay. Whether we make $1 or $10 or $1 million, this is the legacy I want to leave.
I love it.
I want to make a true difference in youth sports, whether it's safe sport, whether it's getting parents to understand what's right and wrong and how to manage it. I really want to leave my legacy as it relates to youth sports.
Hopefully this will be a thing before I have kids, so that's a lot easier. If my kid wants to play like baseball, I can figure that out and things like that. Also, I'm done now playing competitive sports, and I've seen and gone through the experiences, and I think like when I have a passion about something, I really do achieve that and work towards that extremely aggressively. And so I think I've seen my mom work towards this, but now completing my time in competitive sports, like I see the impact this can make, and I've gone through so many experiences where I could have used this platform or seen how it could help someone else in this area, and I really do believe that my mom and I can make a difference. And I don't know how big of a difference, but I think we just need people to believe as much as we believe in this platform.
Absolutely. In any way I can support you guys, I would love to help you guys. I still coach now, and I know my parents would love something like this. It's just because we coach in a big organization where there is 50 teams and there is an A, B, and C team at every age level. Like, The parents don't want to be on the C team, but they need to know why they're there, you know, because a lot of times we don't break that down to where I don't want to tell you, hey, your kid's not good enough, but it's the case. But there's also, like, it could be one thing that they need to work on to make them good enough to be on that next team, and then 2 things to be on the top team. But those things matter, and if they don't
There
know.
are more examples of kids who started off on a 4 team, a 5 team, a 6 team, who made it to the 1 team and did better than everybody else. So it's to play or not to play, but you got to be playing to get better, and you got to put the time in, you got to put the effort in, and a lot of times with youth sports, it's about putting the investment in. So both time and money,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
absolutely.
But yeah, I think it's just important to create a platform for like transparency and accountability. I think those are like 2 words that really stick out to me with our platform is accountability for the players, the parents, the coaches, the clubs, Safe Sport, AAU, every organization within youth sports, making sure there's transparency and accountability within youth sports and making it a more enjoyable process.
I love it. And then I want to leave you guys to give the last word to the people.
What we're
And tell them where to find you too first.
Yep, Sportoroo, sportooroo.com. What we want you to do is go out there, see if your club's out there first and foremost. If it's not, send us a note through the information where you can send it to us and we'll get it added. Rate your club, offer advice. Good advice, what's going well. Offer advice about what you wish you would have known. And at the end of the day, like us on Facebook, Sportoroo, like us on Instagram. Help us become, a great forum for parents. Check our forum out that you can list questions, and we'll be happy to answer or find people that will answer you.
Look, the mission here is awesome. Look, take care of these people. Sportoroo, Vikki and Jacque have been awesome. Thank you guys coming first and foremost. It's been a great time. So burn the ship.